Leon Isaac Kennedy, thank you so much for making the time to join me today on Cassius Morris Official.
Well, Cassius, it's my pleasure to be here with you. And I am partial to people named Cassius because there's a gentleman named Cassius Weathersby that goes all the way back to my very beginnings here in Hollywood that was a pioneer producer getting films done when it was very, very difficult to get Black films done. So I'm partial to that name, Cassius.
It is quite a strong name, I have to say. I'm very thankful to my parents for giving me such a name. So, Leon, obviously, there's lots to discuss today. For anybody who is not up to speed, we're here to talk about the Smokey Robinson sex scandal. Of course, the unbelievable accusations that have been leveraged against him that you have decided to come out and speak out against. I guess the first question for you, Leon, would be why was it so important for you to come out and make such a strong statement in the form of course, your video that you posted in defense of Smokey, not just defending him, but really breaking down the inconsistencies with a lot of these allegations and also giving some insight on his character? Why was this so important for you to jump on the front line for Smokey Robinson?
Cassius, it was imperative to me to, first of all, I was there with Smokey as this press conference took place, and I'm looking at his face as he's hearing these things. I'm looking at his body language as he's hearing these things. And we must remember, Cassius, that I have known Smokey since I was 15 and he was 23. He's now 85, so that's a long, long time. And I know this man, I know his character, I know his nature, I know his personality, and he's a very gentle soul. So to hear these egregious accusations against him with something as profound and as violent as rape, it just doesn't fit into the personality and nature of this man. Let me say this. He's been in the spotlight since 1958. So he's been under public scrutiny of being a star since 1958. So why have we not heard about certain charges against him with misconduct with women when in the 60s or the 70s or the 80s or the 90s or early 2000? Why when he was younger and much more virile, are we not hearing anything out of order about Smokey and his conduct with women? We're going to wait now until he's 75 and then 85 years old for him to go crazy and rape maids. It makes no psychological or logical sense, Cassius.
So maybe if you could speak on how these allegations surfaced. I mean, knowing Smokey and being in his circle, was there rumblings that something was brewing, or did this just come out one day during a press conference and it was a surprise to everyone?
Well, I think that one thought that something was amiss when the three maids all left and quit working at the same time. And then when Francis and or Smokey called to say, what's going on here? Are you coming back? Whatever, they got no return phone calls. So that meant that something was amiss, but certainly nothing this absurd, this outlandish. No, no one was expecting this.
Now, the initial amount that was discussed was $100 million for a settlement. Is that correct? And then it went down to 50 and then lower?
That is correct, Cassius. The first demand, and let me say this, as far as I'm concerned, this is an extortionist shakedown. It's a money grab. So the first demand was 100 million. They were told no. It went down to 50 million, then down to 20 million, then down to 10 million. And then when they were still told no, when they decided to go public, then it came back to $50 million. Now let's break this down for your audience, Cassius. If one is raped, then that is a very, very serious crime, and you want justice. So it seems to me that if you want justice, you would have immediately gone to the police department, you would have demanded to be examined, and then if you're examined and his semen is in you, you have a slam dunk case for justice. And then later, maybe you can sue for civil crimes, et cetera, et cetera. But you could have locked this thing up immediately if this man's semen was in you. But they didn't do that. Even at the time of the press conference, they still had not gone to the police. As a matter of fact, at the end of the press conference, and you saw in my statement, we actually put up what the reporter was asking because it was a little soft in the actual police report. But I mean, in the press conference. But the reporter was in the back saying, well, have you gone to the police? And the lawyer saying, well, no, not yet. Have you filed a police report? Well, no, we have to talk to our clients about that to see how they feel about that type of publicity or whatever word he used. Hey, the publicity has already taken place. You had a press conference here.
Exactly.
So when you're not going to the police and you're doing a demand for $100 million, no, this was not about justice. This was about having a big heyday.
Now, to follow up on that, has there been any kind of legal action other than the lawsuit? I mean, I'm talking police reports filed, up until this point. Has that happened yet?
Cassius, I am not really sure if the DA has come in to investigate or if there's been any other investigation. And let me say this, that I purposely have tried to stay clear of what Smokey's attorneys are doing and some of the other things that are going on because of my statement and me doing interviews like this. I don't really want there to be any legal conflict. Number one, I do not want his attorneys saying to me, hey, Leon, you shouldn't be doing these type of interviews. It's going to not be good for what we're trying to do. Lawyers have their own way of going about things, but Cassius, these type of situations can take 2 or 3 years to get to court. But in the interim, there is already the court of public opinion that's brewing every single day. And so therefore, I had to come in my mind and in my heart and set the record straight from the way that I know this man, from the way I know this woman who is his wife, Frances Robinson, the way I know these so-called Jane Does, because they're not Jane Does to me. I know them by their first names. I know some of their families. I was there when they were first hired. I've been in and out of that house even after these so-called alleged rapes, and I've seen their behavior. I've also talked to psychiatrists and psychologists to ask them their medical opinion, their professional opinion. Can women still just walk around and be cheerful and have a nice, cheerful atmosphere in a house when you've been repeatedly raped? Can women show up at a Smokey concert and go to the meet and greet backstage and bring their families? Can women bring Smokey and Frances to other family gatherings, their family gatherings, to meet their family at weddings and other gatherings? If you were being violently raped, would you bring your sister in when there was an opening for another maid to come in? Would you bring your sister into this type of hostile environment? I don't think so.
Now, you mentioned that you know these women, or you did know these women in the past. These were all people who worked for Smokey, so these women were all connected to a degree.
Or certainly they were connected because they worked together every day. And let me say
Okay.
this, that usually there, Cassius, there were 2 or 3 maids working simultaneously. So one single maid was not there, throughout a long period of time. There was always someone else there, which is another reason for great suspicion. Uh, if you're being raped, are you not going to scream? Are you not going to holler? Are you not going to fight? Are you not going to scratch or hit off a 75 or 80-year-old man? There's no scratches, no bruises, no screams. And then you're going to let it happen to you repeatedly when you've got other people in the house? You could have easily, instead of this one talking about She was raped in the blue bedroom 7 times. After the first time, why would you ever go back into that bedroom? Why would you ever go back upstairs and be alone with him when there are other women there? Wouldn't you, out of just survival nature, say, you go and fix his lunch upstairs, or will you come upstairs with me, or whatever the case might be? The other one that talked about she was raped 23 times in the laundry room, in the garage. It makes no sense whatsoever. And what they're expecting us, the public, to believe is a big, big stretch, Cassius.
Now, when it comes to the attitude and the demeanor from the women who are accusing him now, was there ever any sense that they had an issue with Smokey? They didn't like Smokey? Or did it seem to be all above board and that everybody was just having a good relationship in the house?
It was a great relationship in the house, not just good, it was a great relationship in the house. You know, psychologically, Cassius, when you go through something that violent as being raped, much less repeatedly raped, there's a change in your character. There's a change in your demeanor. You can't go about every single day, week after week, month after month, with a demeanor as if everything is great, everything's cheerful. No one is that great of an actor. The other situation that I find highly suspicious is you've got 4 women working together. You're going to keep a secret like this? No one is going to say, hey, you seem a little different. What's going on with you? None of that took place. You've got families. You mean to tell me that your family's not going to notice a difference in you? And you've gone through something this violent and this vile? It makes no sense.
So, just to sort of ask a little further about the motivation, you don't feel like there's any personal motivation in this? I mean, let's say that he's completely innocent and we're looking at it that way. There's no personal motivation and you would say it's just about money then.
Yes, to me, it's a money grab. And by the way, this is not an isolated case, Cassius. This type of money grab is happening, I would say, every month, especially in this town of Los Angeles, much less other places. It has become a cottage industry for people to come with accusations, no matter how profound they might be or how absurd they might be. And they're saying to whoever they're going up against, this is what I'm getting ready to say, and this is what I want if you don't want this to go away. And I've said this before in one of my other interviews, when that victim, because that's what that person is, that it's a victim of a shakedown, when that victim goes to their attorney and says, this is absolutely absurd, and I want to fight this, by the time they do the math of how much it's going to cost an attorney to fight this, which could be in the millions, depending on how long it's going to take to go to court and what else you have to do as far as bringing in witnesses and detectives and so on and so forth, it could be well over $1 million. And then the damage has already been done to you before it ever gets to court. And then 2 or 3 years later, when you're found not guilty, damage has already been done. And guess what, Cassius? Even when you're found not guilty, you're never looked at the same. There's always someone that's going to scrutinize a little bit. Well, maybe he was guilty. Maybe the whispers and the this and the that and the rumors. So in many, many instances, the lawyer has said, it's just better to pay him up, pay him off. It's a cost of doing business. And that's how bad it has gotten in our society. And by the way, this is not, you mark my words, this is not going to just be women coming after men. This is going to be men coming after other affluent men. This is going to be men and women coming after affluent women. You wait and see.
I believe that. Now, you spoke on some of the inconsistencies in terms of, people's demeanor, perhaps when things were reported. What are some of the other main inconsistencies aside from your personal relationship with Smokey that really make you believe that he's innocent? Because correct me if I'm wrong, you seem to be very much convicted that he is innocent. Is there any shadow of a doubt for you about that?
I have no shadow of a doubt that Smokey Robinson is innocent. The man I know, I don't think is capable of violently raping these women repeatedly. So let's talk about inconsistencies. That was your question. First of all, the blue bedroom where the maid is saying, or the Jane Doe is saying, he came out naked. He had an erection. He put a towel on the bed and beckoned me to come over to the bed. Seems to me that the minute he came out naked and with an erection, you'd leave the room. What are you, a zombie? You're just gonna go over to the bedroom and lay down because he put a towel out there? Makes no sense at all. Major inconsistency. And why would you do it over and over? Makes no sense at all.
Now, what's your response for people who may decide to push back on this discussion? Obviously, there are many, many inconsistencies, and we've barely even scratched the surface of those. But there will be people, like you mentioned, who say it is possible. What is your response to those people?
All right, so I would say this. One, let's look at someone's nature. Let's look at Smokey Robinson when he was in his virile days, when he was 20 and 30 and 40 and even 50 years old. We've heard no reports of misconduct by this man. Like I said, he's constantly under public scrutiny. Where's the misconduct? Where are other women accusing him of being out of order with them? It didn't happen. That's one. Two is this is Smokey Robinson that we're talking about. So we're not talking about an older man that's confined to the house and maybe to have some outside relationship or outside sex. He's got to be with one of the maids. This is a man that is still doing concerts all across the country, actually all across the world. Right now, as we speak, he's in England doing some major concerts. There are many, many adoring fans, adoring female fans that I think would love to have an evening with Smokey if he was open to it. So why would you rape a maid if you're Smokey Robinson? Also in your own house. Why would you bring something that vile to your house? It just no. And then for them to say, and Frances Robinson, the wife, she knew about this. She was complicit. That's an absolute lie. Anybody that knows Frances, they'll know her as a staunch Christian woman. And, there are all types of Christians, Cassius, but Frances is the type of woman, she has a reverence and a fear of God, a fear of the repercussions for doing wrong to another human being. There is no way, absolutely, that she would allow that to happen. And I'll tell you something else. As Smokey's younger brother, because that's what he's always called me throughout his life, his little brother. As his brother and as his best friend, if I had any inkling that he was doing something like this, I would come to him and say, no, 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 we're going to the police. We're going to take care of this. And then we're going to get you some deep psychiatric help because you are out of control and this is sick. I don't condone taking advantage of women. I don't condone taking advantage of any human being. So I wouldn't sit idly by as much as I love him. If you're a real friend, you step in and you intervene in something like this.
I think one of the strongest points that can be made is about his past. When you look at a lot of the scenarios, which sadly this has been compared to in Hollywood, people who, are guilty even, a lot of them, there were many signs. You look at a situation like the Sean Combs case. I mean, there were many, many signs all throughout the decades that this dude was up to something really bad. So you don't see that with Smokey. Let me, piggyback on that. Do you think that comparisons to cases like those are harmful for this entire scenario? And how do you feel that, his name is even being thrown in there with, monsters like that?
Well, let me be careful how I answer this, because I don't know Diddy that well. I know him, but I don't know him that well. But as you said, Cassius, there have been rumors and also beyond rumors about his behavior. So his personality is completely different than a Smokey Robinson's personality. And I think that history verifies that. I think that people throughout show business would verify that. And I think that, just as I said, there have been no incidents of anger management or being out of order in public or whatever the case might be. None of that has taken place with Smokey. But I will tell you where there's a link. Where there's a link is when the media starts talking about the type of money that people are suing for and what people are going to get. That puts a germ in somebody else's mind. You know, we could get that too. So that's what has taken place here.
Now, in terms of personal impact for Smokey, you mentioned that you were there with him while he watched the press conference. You've been there with him, for 60 years. How has this affected him, do you think, as a man? Has it affected his morale? I mean, how has Smokey taken all of this at 85 years old?
Cassius, he has been completely devastated. This is a man that from the time he was a teenager has worked very hard. This is a man that has always carried himself with dignity and responsibility. He's the ultimate professional. You don't hear about Smokey missing concerts and being in situations that he shouldn't be in. You've never heard that. This is a man that, even when he was a young man, helped to build Motown, one of the greatest music empires that this country has ever seen. He worked with all the other artists. The other artists have all looked up to him as a voice of reason. And now, this late in your life, you're going to be hit with this type of ambush when it comes to your legacy and everything that you've stood for in life. It's a very hard blow to take, Cassius.
100%. I guess to wrap up, what do you think should be the consequences for people moving forward who make these allegations? Let's say that it's thoroughly investigated and, it's found in a court of law that he's innocent. What should happen to the people who, put out these allegations?
Well, that's a great question from you, Cassius. I really believe in my heart that laws need to be changed, because right now it's too one-sided. What do you mean by that, Leon? I mean that not in this case, because we know who the Jane Does are, but in many cases, first of all, with this Me Too movement, and there was a need for a Me Too movement, but the pendulum swung too far. And that usually happens when a correction comes in to take place. It's not the proper balance at the beginning. So the pendulum has swung too far, and men are really guilty upon accusation. So one, that's not fair. Two is, in many instances, in other cases, it's a Jane Doe has accused you, but the person being accused doesn't even know and is not told who the Jane Doe is for their protection. Well, darn it, if you are going to sue somebody and ruin their life and make a public accusation on them, shouldn't you have the right to know who that person was? What is it in the old days or even in the Bible when you're supposed to confront your accuser face to face? So that's wrong. The other thing is there need to be consequences because right now there are no consequences. So uh, let's take this case. It goes to court. He's found not guilty. It's cost him millions of dollars. It's taken a big hit on his reputation, his legacy. It's cost a lot of money because deals have stopped, cash stream has stopped. You countersue. Well, who are you countersuing? They have nothing. What are you going to get? Nothing. So there should be consequences, even for lawyers that take on these flimsy cases without being fact-based for a good payday. There should be consequences against these type of attorneys also.
So right now there's everything to gain and nothing to lose.
You said it, Cassius. Everything to gain for people that are going to come out with an extortionist shakedown. And what do you have to lose? We tried. It did okay. We didn't get as much as we thought, but we had nothing to lose. So why not?
Unbelievable. In closing, I wanted to ask you, Leon, and I thank you so much for your insight and time today. What is something that you wish people knew about Smokey Robinson that maybe you would either assume they don't know or maybe you haven't got to put out there yet? Well, what do you want people to know about him as a man?
I would hope that everyone listening, all of your all of your listeners, Cassius, would have a chance to meet a Smokey Robinson because they would meet one of the kindest, most gracious, most gentle of people in the world. He has always gone out of his way to be gracious. I talk about the times where he's hundreds of times I've been with him when there's a meal going on. And in the middle of putting a spoon to his mouth, someone will come up, Smoke, can I have an autograph? Can I have a picture? He's never once in hundreds of times said, no, can you come back after I have finished eating or whatever. He's always jumped right up, taken the picture, signed the autograph, give him a hug. He's just one of the nicest people you will ever meet. And that's why this is so hurting to me that a man this kind who has exuded love, exuded kindness. You've heard his music. He's a poet. And to take this type of hit, it's quite heartbreaking.
Leon, I thank you so much for your time. And I'll tell you as well, I think every single person in Hollywood should have a friend like you. I think Smokey's very lucky to have you in his corner, and it's very big what you're doing for him. So thank you for coming on and sharing this today.
Well, Cassius, thank you for having me. You asked very acute questions,
Thank you.
and you certainly did your homework, and you're a great interviewer.
Thank
And
you.
I look to talk with you again.
Certainly, I can't wait to do a part two about Motown and many other exciting things coming soon.